So here in this crawl space we have a little extra room. This is a larger crawl space than normal. This is a tri-level in Michigan. Mostly their complaints were odor and high humidity, moisture coming up out of there in the summer and the winter time. So here you can see the black foundation seal tape is on the wall. There's the craft paper that Rich is pulling back right now. When the foundation seal tape is put on the foundation and worked in, and I mean worked in by pushing it in with your hand and getting a good seal like you would with any tape, it bonds really well to the block, and it bonds extremely well to the back of the vapor barrier. So here we are together getting ready to fold and pull this corner around the bladder tank, and this is going to take both of us to lift it because we're dealing with folding it and laying it at the same time. So the first thing we want to do is to get the top sealed to the top of the block and keep our consistent corner. We tuck it in the corner and then we pull it back away from the corner onto the foundation seal tape. Get a nice tight straight seal or a seam on it and back through, and you can see we're folding it in half so that we can get the bulk of it behind it. And then we're going to set that set it to the bond, the foundation seal tape. We're going to set the bond and get that stuck and in place, and then we'll lay down the majority of the rest of the wall, and then together we'll work on lifting that bladder tank and getting it underneath. Now, one of the obstructions you can see is that we've got a lot of vapor barrier kind of bound up behind it. So it takes a little bit of manhandling to get back to the edge and get it to where you're not undoing anything you've done as far as pulling it off the wall down. We try to get it set right where it's going to go. In other words, we move it around as much as we need to move it around all at one time rather than coming back and moving it again. This way, when it's done, it's complete. And the way we set the walls and we laid everything to figure was the floor was not going to go underneath the bladder tank. We made the walls longer so that they would go under the bladder tank and stick past, so we could get a seam on it past that. A better feel after the first piece. All right, so here we've got the sewer coming up out of the ground, and then it falls right along the wall. So we're trimming the wall portion of it around the sewer, and it's simply just cut around it in a circle, and then lay the piece over top of it, and then you can trim it. Instead of trying to guess where the circle ends up, you just lay it back down, and you'll see where you're going to end up, and then it lays right back inside there, and you've got a seam that you tape up, and you seal it right up to the metal. So now we're moving on to the floor, and we moved up the extension cord, but generally you're going to come across occasions where you have cables and phone lines and things like that, and you need to make sure that you keep that on top of the vapor barrier so that you can get to it. If you got a connection that goes bad or something like that, you don't have to cut it at one end and splice it and run new line. You just get right to where the problem is. And on top of that, anything on top of the vapor barrier is going to be in a lot better condition than whatever's left underneath it, because it's going to be much cleaner and much drier on top. So this particular crawl space is about 451 square feet, and what we're looking at right here is about half of it. There's another half on the other side. We take our shoes off once we get onto the white side. It keeps it from getting it dirtier than we need to. Ultimately, we want a nice clean surface. It's not very uncomfortable to have your shoes off. So here we are with the final taped seam. There's our bladder tank, and the homeowner had come in when we were doing this and changed out his water filter. There's the supports that are wrapped. Typically we go 2 feet up on the supports, and then with this being a tri-level, the home there is to the right.